What's good? It's your girl Tracy AWM, and yes, it has been a while since I've done another presentation. Believe it or not, this slide deck was prepared several months ago, but ADHD, and I completely forgot that I did this. Um, and I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and record this so I can get this put out to the Facebook and YouTube verse. I hope everybody is doing well and happy holidays. So today we're going to talk about getting a costume for Carnival. If you've never played Mask before, you may be a little bit overwhelmed with how to get a carnival costume. And so we're going to really talk about that in this slide deck. So I'm always going to start my little presentations with a caution. And if you practice medicine or you know somebody that practices medicine, it's kind of like my black box label. Carnival is life-changing and highly addictive. I played Mask for the very first time back in 2015. It changed my life, and I've been chasing carnivals ever since. So let's talk about getting a costume for Carnival. Some few disclaimers. I am not a representative of any mask band or organization. This is not sponsored content. This is just a general guideline, and some rules may or may not apply, mainly because not all bands have the same business model. But my goal is for you to get a little bit familiar so you can make informed decisions. So when we talk about registering with a mask band, we're going to cover these topics to include misunderstandings, different ways to register, how you pay, what your options are, and we're going to hit up with some frequently asked questions and some words of advice. So let's talk about band registration. What exactly is that? Band registration is exactly how you purchase a costume. I think one of the things that people really get mixed up, or they hyper focus on the costume and they completely forget that when they pay their monies, they are paying for an experience. And that experience may or may not come with Juve depending on where you're registering, whether it be in the United States or abroad. It comes with amenities to include a food truck, drinks, goodie bags, all the extra roving photographer. You chip into and contribute to that experience. So it's very important. I'm going to stress again, you get a costume by registering with the band, unless, of course, you decide to hire or commission a designer for something else. That's a completely different story. But if you're wanting to participate in Carnival, you're going to get a costume by registering with a band. So let's talk about some common myths about registration, because these are some things I completely misunderstood about Carnival. I thought that I had to get permission to play Mask. I thought that I had to be part of some sort of club or organization. I'm like, do I need to audition? Do they need to see me whine? And most importantly, I didn't know that I did not have to be of West Indian descent or ancestry to participate in Carnival. All are welcome to play Mask, to include white folks, okay? So when you register with a band, there are a few ways that you can get registered. You can register in person, and the Mask Camp is something that's dying a little bit. They're still overseas, but in the States, you don't see too many Mask Camps. And basically what a Mask Camp is, like a little store or a little, a little corner inside of a restaurant sometimes, where you get to see the costumes on display. And you get to register in person. All right. Another way for you to do it is whether it be via online or a website. Nowadays, a lot of the carnival bands, the mask bands will have a website for you to go to, call it like a Play Mask app or Massos, a portal for you to register and manage your payments for your carnival costume online through a portal. Sometimes you will have to contact a committee member and they send you a hyperlink to your email. That's typically with Trinidad Carnival. I have not seen the committee member registration anywhere else. And another way to do it, like I said, is via email. You pretty much contact a committee member on this laundry list, cross your fingers and hope that they send you a link for the costume that you want. That is generally how most people will register. Now, some alternative ways is sometimes you'll get in contact with the band and they'll send you like a Google Forms link, or they'll have like a Google Forms link on your social media and you tell them what you want and they'll send you like a paper invoice and ask you to Zelle or Cash App them to confirm your registration. I don't recommend that way of registration, but we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. So how do you pay for your carnival costume? You can do it via cash, Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, and even Afterpay, which I think is really great. I have not seen Afterpay used overseas in any island countries yet, but being able to pay for your carnival costume via Afterpay is something that is becoming increasingly popular. Sorry, my cat was making noise. It's something that's becoming increasingly popular, which is a good thing for the bands because the costume is paid in full when you do the transaction, and you are able to establish quarterly, bi-weekly payments with the issuer. And it just makes things seamless for everybody. And of course, my favorite, credit cards, because I feel like, you should really choose options where it can be traced or disputed if needed. We'll talk more about that later. So when you register for a costume, you will have some costume options. And we see here a list of costume options in descending order of most expensive to least expensive: individual, frontline, midline, and backline. An individual costume, there's probably maybe 5 masqueraders at most that have the most insanely elaborate costume in that section. It's very, very expensive. I wore an individual back in 2021. Was it 2021? Yeah, 2021. And that costume cost about $1,800. And there were 4 of us. And yeah, it's pretty expensive. And then you have your front line, which is, a couple steps down in elaboration, but still gorgeous. Midline and backline. As you go all the way down to backline, it becomes a more simpler costume to make it more affordable. So some frequently asked questions about, registration is, when do I get my costume? You will get your costume when it's time for distribution. A lot of people want to know if their carnival costume is going to be mailed to them. And the answer is no. Your band will select a distribution time or date the week of carnival, and they will tell you when to come and get your costume. Alternatively, like for Miami Carnival, some New York-based bands will have distribution in New York City or in other parts of New York before they head down to Miami for their carnival. And people that are registered that are from New York can come pick it up. But I've only seen that in New York-based bands. But otherwise, you will pick up your costume the week of the carnival event. Another question is, what if I change my mind or cannot make the carnival? Well, unfortunately, your funds are non-refundable, and you could try to work with the band. Bands are becoming a little bit more empathetic, especially US-based bands. They're becoming more empathetic with, the fact that shit happens to people, and some bands will do you a solid and they will put your costume in the mail and at least send it to you, but you're not going to get your money back if you can't make it. Okay. Some recommendations, the most common recommendation is try to have somebody pick it up for you. Or alternatively, you can sell your costume with approval of the band. Selling of costumes is actually something that's actually very common. And if you get on websites like Find a Band or, some Facebook groups, or you like in band stories, you'll look at, like the week of distribution or a couple weeks out, you'll see that bands are announcing that costumes are available. They're trying to help out a masquerader by reselling their costume. Another question I get is, can I wear or bring my own costume? And that's a no. And the reason why is that the costumes change every year, and Carnival is a presentation, if you will. A lot of people don't realize that it is an artistic presentation. Guys, I'm sorry, my cat is making so much noise. But what I was saying is that Carnival is an artistic presentation, and so the presentation will change every year. It has a theme. And the costume needs to emulate the theme, especially if the bands are competing for best band. They want everybody to be uniform and the presentation to flow and look good. And if you bring your own costume, that's pretty problematic. And so the answer is no, you cannot. Now, there are some events out there, some carnival events where bands will be like, just bring your own costume and get on the road and jam. Of course, then, bringing your own costume is completely acceptable, but 99% of the time, the answer is a hard no. Okay. Another question is, can someone pick up my costume? And that answer is yes. So if you're participating in Carnival, you might notice that, you might have bought FET tickets, and then 2 weeks out from your carnival, the band decided to have costume distribution for one of the fets that you really, really wanted to go to. And so sometimes you will be able to authorize somebody to pick up your costume. Sometimes you can go through the portal and upload their information. Sometimes you have to email the mask camp and send a picture of their ID and an email from you stating that this person is authorized to pick up your costume. Alternatively, some people like to um, take advantage of what we call concierge services, where they pick up your costume for you and deliver it. And I'll talk a little bit about concierge services, costume concierge services, and about the pros and the cons. And you can decide if it's for you. Me personally, I don't think it's for me unless like I'm buying like a Juve package and there's no costume, because I need to make sure that it fits appropriately. And so I tend to stay away from carnival costume concierge services because it's not their responsibility to make sure that your costume fits. And if you receive your costume and you need to go back to the mask camp anyway, then you just pretty much wasted your money. All right. And we answered that question, is distro at the same time as a FET? What do? Have someone pick up your costume. Another question is, how much do costumes cost? And I will say it depends. It depends on where the carnival is. Some carnival events are more popular than others. And if it's very popular, you're going to have a popular price. It also depends on the band. If the band is very popular, you're going to have a popular price. And it also depends on how elaborate the costume. Are you getting an individual, frontline, midline, or backline? It all depends. In the United States, I saw an average for Miami Carnival costumes. A backline costume costs anywhere between $600 to $800. A frontline, 13 to 14, and an individual, the price was not listed. And you know that when you see things online and it says contact for price, you know it's expensive as hell. Okay. So here are my words of advice about costume registration and pickup. The biggest thing I tell people is purchase your costume at your current size, not your goal size. You will not believe how many times I've seen women register and say, hey, I'm going to be a panty size smaller, so let me go ahead and order small when I'm a large or a medium large. And then they get to the mask camp and they slide the panty, or they take a look at it and they put it up against their body and it's not going to fit. And sometimes the bands are going to be like, well, this is what you ordered. You're going to have to figure it out. Or if overseas, mostly, they'll have a seamstress to see if they can help you out or take it in. But honestly, it's easier to take in a panty that's larger than to try to make a panty that's too small bigger. So always choose a size that you're currently at, not your goal size. Select a costume to budget. When we take a look at carnival costumes, you are going to see these and your eyes are just going to get big and wide. And the costume that you're absolutely in love with is $1,800. Play mass according to your budget. Okay. I cannot stress that enough. And when you do your budget, make sure you're including the cost of everything, to include your plane tickets, your hotels, your tickets, your FET tickets, your outfits, your food, all of that, and costume together, so you can figure out how much you want to budget for your costume and go from there. What I tell people is figure out your budget first before you go to your band launch or you take a look at the costumes, because if not, you are setting yourself up for some serious failure. Okay. I also want to emphasize that you should pay in traceable funds only. Credit card is best, okay? And the reality is, I would be lying if I did not tell you that there are several incidences out there, whether people are traveling overseas in the United States, where unfortunately, due to distribution issues, due to the fact that, costumes for the most part are outsourced, a lot of people in the carnival industry, bands and section leaders, rely on a lot of outsourcing. The design is outsourced. The production of your costume is outsourced. And sometimes they'll just do the feather work, but for the most part, everything that you're putting on your body is outsourced for the most part by that section leader. And because they rely on other businesses to make sure they deliver a product on time, sometimes that does not happen. And when you do not get your costume and you're not afforded any other opportunities to switch to another section and you're just pretty much asked out, you're going to want to make sure that you paid for your costume with traceable funds. And this is why I say go for a credit card. You can pay for a costume with your debit card, but I find that disputes with debit card companies, it's not necessarily as vicious as if you have a credit card. Additionally, I will tell you that when you pay with your credit card, that credit card company, for example, Capital One is a MasterCard. When you file a dispute with MasterCard, When you file a dispute with Capital One asks MasterCard to process the dispute. So MasterCard and Visa, they function as middlemen to your servicing bank. Okay. So Capital One doesn't do the investigation. MasterCard or Visa does the investigation. And because of that middleman process, a lot of times disputes don't always go well in your favor, even though you have solid proof and evidence. They screw something up, and even though they screw something up, you can only ask once for that dispute process, and it's over. They don't even let you rebut it. It's just over. Either you didn't get your money back or you did, but either way, it's over. There's no buts. And that's one reason why I like Amex. Amex directly handles all of their disputes. Amex is the bank. Amex is the service issuer for their Amex. And so there is no middleman. And what I found is that after I got an Amex, when I needed to file a dispute, Amex did not play games with these merchants. Either you gave the person a product or you did not in a discussion. So if you're going to put something on a credit card, I highly recommend, if it's allowed, to put it on an Amex. But either way, make sure that you pay for your card in traceable funds, because if you paid for a costume in cash, you're asked out, right? You're going to have to take it to small claims court. If you paid for a costume by Cash App or Zelle and you didn't do friends and family, then your purchase is not insured. And sometimes they'll be like, well, you should, if you don't pay for it in friends and family because there's a fee. Well, ask to pay for the fee, whatever that percentage is, so your purchase is protected. Because otherwise, if your funds are paid for and it's non-traceable, there's a chance that you're going to be waiting a very, very, very long time for your refund. Okay, for a lot of different reasons, or you may not get it at all. And that is just the nature of the beast. I have to be very honest with you. These are things that actually happen. Another thing that I recommend is that you pay in full before distribution. It's coming to a point where bands are no longer allowing people to pay for their costumes in full at distribution, because it completely clogs up the distribution system. If you've ever gone to a mass camp to pick up your costume, some bands will have people that did not pay in the same lines of people that paid. And the people that paid are waiting much longer for them to process the payment and then get their costume. And that's not fair to the masqueraders. And that makes distribution last a lot longer. And believe it or not, the people that are distributing your costumes, they want to get y'all out of here so they can go fet. And so they're not letting people continue to pay for costumes at distribution. Paying in full will definitely save you a lot of time. They'll scan you, they see you, and they'll send you straight to the line to go get your costume. And that's what you want, especially if you're trying to get out to a fet. Pay in full. I cannot stress that enough. And lastly, I want you to make sure you get your questions answered before you registered. For example, what if you can't see the back? Like, can I see the back of the costume? Do you have full coverage options? Are you able to, remove this? Can I get a costume and with full coverage and get a ultra frontline backpack? You want to have all your questions paid in, not questions paid. You want to have your questions, any question that you might have, get them answered before you register, because if you do not make an informed decision and pay your money and register and you find out it's not for you because of something that you didn't know about your costume, your funds are forfeit. And that is something I do not want you to have to deal with, whether it be trying to sell your costume or argue with the band about accommodating whatever you need. Okay. And so I hope to see you on the road. This is November 30th. We're currently gearing up to get ready to go to Trinidad in about 86 days-ish or what have you. So you'll next see me on the road in Trinidad. My website is AmericanWinesMatter.com. If you have any questions, you can reach me at hello@AmericanWinesMatter.com. And of course, check out the social media handles below. I hope this information was helpful to you. And if you know anybody that might make benefit of this video, be sure to send it to them. I hope you guys have a great day.